my name is Ali Mukhtar, founder of Fatima Ventures. In Fatima Ventures, how we like to define ourselves is a VC fund. You could call it a corporate venture backed by Fatima Group, but we're also involved in developing the startup ecosystem. How we're doing that is that we've defined a startup cycle to be in 3 stages. Stage 1, what we say is, you could say, the product stage, where you're working on actually developing the product and testing that product maybe from 10 to 1,000 users and trying to see, trying to reiterate the product, what you said, MVPs. So that's the phase 1. Those companies mostly are likely fit for an incubation environment or mentorship. So there Fatima Ventures is involved in co-running the National Incubation Center with LUMS in Lahore. But we are also interested in partnerships with other incubators across Pakistan, including the NIC in Islamabad.
And you are also starting an acceleration or something?
So that's step 2 of our process, where in the step 1 you've sort of validated your product. Now the next logical step becomes validating the market, because at such an early stage you don't know what your acquisition channels are, you don't know what your market is, so spending money and efforts to actually test out the market. So that's primarily companies that are at that stage. We'll refer them to our accelerator program. The accelerator program is not a structured program. It's tailor-made. We'll only be accepting 6 to 8 companies on a rolling basis, and invest $30,000 in each of the companies. So if those companies can deliver, then we refer them to Fatima Ventures.
Okay.
So Fatima Ventures right now has done rounds between $100,000 to $200,000, but has appetite to do larger rounds in a syndicate. So we're open to those opportunities also. So that's in a nutshell how we're involved. Apart from the investment, we're very much involved in creating networks, both in terms of follow-on investments, but other linkages, whether it's customer acquisition, whether it's mentorship, whether it's HR and recruiting issues. So our HR department, Fatima, is on board with all of our startups in helping them structure, both on the legal side as well as on the culture management side. But as well as actually going out and helping them recruit talent.
Right. So is this for the early bird startup which you
this is across. This is across.
Okay.
So identifying each step was also for you to know where you could apply to us, to actually then us to look at you.
And when is the acceleration program going to begin?
So it's already active.
Okay.
We're now looking for companies on a rolling basis, so people can go online and apply.
So guys, you can apply as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And regarding the donation hub, if I'm not wrong, was that also one of your initiatives?
That was an early initiative. It's still in the works. So that was a personal CSR effort, let's say. You could.
So Fatima Ventures is also into.
So Fatima Ventures is not part of that. It's my personal initiative, which is still pending.
But what do you say about this segment, social entrepreneurship?
So we can look at companies, but primarily we're a for-profit venture fund. If there are companies that have a promising value but can create impact, why not?
Impact along with the profit.
Yes, but that's not the main driver, that it has to be social impact. We're open.
Understood. Right. Would you like to share anything more regarding the future plans?
So as I mentioned, going forward we'll be making a lot more investments this year and then the follow-on years. And eventually our goal is, right now we want to create a portfolio from Fatima Group, and then we are positioning ourselves to become a gateway for other investors who want to invest into Pakistan.
Interesting.
So we're looking at those options, but right now primarily we're running as a corporate VC.
I think we should proceed to the questions then.
So my question is basically, there are 3 parts. So if you could just answer them. What kind of startups do you invest in? And That's the first part. Second part is what kind of investment we have already done.
Okay.
And third part is what is the process if somebody wants to do that.
Okay. So the 3 investments we've done so far, we've done 3. One was Interacta, which is a Shazam for TV. One is Beauty Hooked, which is an online platform for beauty salon bookings as well as beauty information, and now going into e-commerce. And the third investment we've done is MangoBaaz, which you could say is BuzzFeed for Pakistan. In terms of how you can apply is you can go online on fatimaventures.com and you can apply online. It's the same format as the Y Combinator form. So you just fill that in. Step 1, those applications come to us. There's no deadline for it because it's rolling. So we have our meetings every 2 weeks in which we sit down, and in those 2 weeks, whichever startups are there, we look at them, and then we either decide to say no to them or take them to step 2. Step 2 is in-person meeting, where we'll go over different aspects of the startup. If you pass step 2, then we'll send you a follow-on checklist of things we require, and then that's when proper due diligence starts, and then we either say yes or no. Right now we're agnostic, so we're looking at primary driver is that the infrastructure for tech development is penetrating, it's increasing, and consumerism is also increasing. So at that intersection, there are many different sectors that seem promising. One such sector we think is agri-tech. There's a lot that can be done there. Fintech is very relevant, e-commerce and other consumer plays. So we're looking at those also. So far we're agnostic.
The 3 investments that you did make, what was, if you could describe the most outstanding feature, the striking features that convinced you to invest in those? So if you could describe for each of them.
So I think the most important, I'm sure you hear this all the time, is actually the team. In early stages, we do actually, in our scoring early phase, we do associate 30 to 40% to the team of how strong the team is. In all 3 of them, they were very good founders. They were ethical founders, hardworking founders, with the ability to create teams and go forward. So that was number 1. And then for both of them, then all of the other metrics follow, whether it's the right traction, whether it's size of the market, readiness of the market, things like that then follow. As for example, in MangoBaaz, the first step was getting to know the founders, all of that. They were both founders who had run startups or worked for startups in the US. They had relevant experience in that industry. Then number 2, what we were looking at is that digital advertisement spend in Pakistan is increasing exponentially, like everywhere in the world. 2-3 years ago, I think, I'm not sure if that's the correct number, it was around $70 million. Now it's jumped over $100 million. Normally 70% goes to Facebook and Google and all of that. The remaining 20-30% is where BuzzFeeds of the world and all these guys play. In Pakistan, there was not much happening in that space, especially for millennials. So that made for a perfect thesis to invest in them. And we invested in them when they had a few followers. Now they're over 1 million, several million subscribers.
Question is, how much stake in a startup do you usually keep when investing?
It varies, but typically we've taken between 15 and 20%.
The other investors who try to grab up to 50% stake. I mean, this is very common. It's actually becoming a dilemma these days.
It is actually very common, and I think it's both for the investors and as well as for the startups to know what kind of terms they're getting into. I think, at least my view is that if you're taking on too much equity initially, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot also, because you're not leaving much room for the follow-on rounds. So And if they're taking 50%, then the startup needs to see what value they're actually bringing. Maybe they're a strategic investor who can actually create a lot of value for your startup. So maybe there are some exemptions, but overall, I don't think it's good for the startup or the investor to take 50% at such an early stage.
For these three startups, what was the average time for the deal to go through from the time that you first talked and when the money hit the bank?
So I'll be candid. First one took longer. First one took, it was our first investment. It took 2-3 months. The second one was, let's say 6 weeks. MangoBaaz was less than a month. So we've evolved over time in our process also.
Okay. And last thing, what drives you actually to keep on going with the more like investing in the startup, even though sometimes it's said that it's more like a risky investment?
I think so. In the next phase of what you call the fourth industrial revolution, a lot of wealth will be created in that wave within Pakistan as well, as it's been done in other countries. So it's definitely an important sector that will continue to grow and create value. But the other interesting thing, my personal objective also is that if you look at Pakistan, it's a country of 200 million people.
Right.
It's very hard to find a single company that's recognized globally.
Exactly.
India has several hundreds, Tata's, Reliance, multiple startups that have now become that way. So I think this tech revolution that's now beginning to emerge here will actually take Pakistan on that map if it can be utilized well,
Looking
as well as
forward to have some
locally.
unicorns.
Inshallah.
Yeah.